Hello, everyone. Tonight I thought I'd talk a little bit about. I think I've talked about this on my channel before. Um, Pretty sure. But I am bipolar 1. Um, and I have what's called like complicated bipolar 1. At least that's what my therapist says. Um, so I struggle with a lot of things that are go under that umbrella. Um, I definitely have like deeply depressive times where it'll be, I'll work for 2 days, feel totally exhausted, and just spend the rest of the week in bed or watching something and crying. So I definitely have the severe dips that's talked about with bipolar, the ups and downs. I have a little bit of a different experience because most people have euphoric mania, which is like you're feeling like shit in your depressive era, and then when you pop back up to mania, it feels like, you have those grandiose feelings of, Jesus reincarnated, or I've seen God, or feeling like you're the shit, and that's, you've got everything going on and you understand everything. Um, and I've never really had a problem with feeling like grandiose, like a lot of people talk about, like, oh, they were bipolar, they were having a like moment of like grandiosity. Is that a word? Um, and it's just it's tough. It's tough to deal with all of that. Um, so yeah, definitely some like depressive episodes, but also like feeling elevated, being able to, not sleep very much, go for days without sleeping very much. I mean, I had insomnia for months and months and months, so I know the struggle with sleep, and I know how much of a trigger it can be for manic and depressive episodes. So you gotta be really careful with that. Um, what else? Mania, one of the things I talk about is kind of my, for me, my problem a lot of times was like, um, maybe this is TMI, but I had kind of a sexual, like, I liked having sexual interaction because they made me feel something. Um, and so I kind of put a lot of my manic vibes into like sexting and meeting guys and hanging out and doing whatever. And I think that once I figured out that that was part of my mania, I was like, oh, I see. Like once I understood that that was like a chemical reaction in my brain that switched on the mania, and then I was like having all these partners, just very, what some people would say, promiscuous, some people would say, and use slut shaming, which is a whole other problem with bipolar people and their sex drives being kind of nuts and all of that. Like, that's complicated. And I would have dysphoric mania. I don't always have euphoric. Euphoric is I think I'm the shit. I think I'm God. I think I'm the new Jesus. Secret kind of that I hardly ever bring up in videos, but for a while I thought it was some kind of like energy vampire, which I don't think that now, but that was a kind of grandiose feeling of having, some kind of supernatural powers or something like that. So that was kind of a grandiose, but it was just dark because I'm a dark fucker. So yeah, and then you hit mania, and a lot of times mania for me for years was when I was most likely to commit suicide. I had lots of suicidal ideation and thought about it a lot and got sent to the psych ward at least once for those kinds of acting out some of that. I've been to the psych ward twice. Um, it's always an adventure. Um, you know, for, mostly for a manic episode. Usually because manic episodes can be dysphoric. So you'll have, I did a lot of self harm. I'm gonna I should put a trigger warning in front of this. Um, a lot of self harm. I'll put it in the description. Um, Self harm stuff became almost an addiction in itself. Um, you know, I definitely feel like, the statistics of the high percentage of people with mental health issues being the victim of abuse and, easily scammed into stuff. Sometimes I can be very naive, and not understanding how bad something can be. Definitely the dysphoric mania, a lot of the self harm, a lot of the suicidal thoughts, suicidal plans, and all that kind of stuff. Some different things. I won't go into the whole thing now, but different things that were going on that I was seeing, like, okay, didn't know this was a bipolar thing, didn't know this was a bipolar thing. A lot of that, just a lot of, going into the doctor, and I guess I don't even remember what I said, but going into that doctor and her being like, interesting, like, now you seem this, when last time you seemed like this, and I'm like, okay, like, I get that. She was like, here, let me have you fill this out, and I ticked off, there were 10 questions, and I think I ticked off 9 out of 10. And she was like, yeah, I think, like, we've got a bipolar situation going on here. And we did other things. Because a part of it, a lot of what I read was that, you go into the doctor for depression. If you have euphoric mania, you're out there going, yes, I'm getting stuff done, I'm doing all my chores, I'm doing all this creative stuff. It could be super great, and I have had those in little amounts. But dysphoric is so, like, quick to psych ward, if not, like, needing some kind of serious medication change. I do have a psychiatrist now instead of a nurse practitioner, which I think is the best way to go. In my experience, I'm not a doctor, I am not a psychiatrist, I am not a therapist. I'm a life coach. It's a whole different thing. But I do help people that are struggling with mental illness and with wanting tarot and some kind of those specific things that help you kind of rise above and have someone help you figure out what's happening. But anyway, so I just knew something was wrong. I knew something more than depression was happening. And, I don't know, to the point of where, like, I went to the doctor because I was like, I feel totally nuts. And then they were like, okay, do this bipolar thing. And I don't think they said it was a bipolar test. I think she just said, hey, like, you see, you have a lot of things. Let me give you this form to see so she wasn't telling me what it was for. So it was like, the only thing I think I didn't check off was that I buy a lot of stuff. I'm not a buyer. I don't, like, go outside of I buy things, but I don't go outside of my budget to buy things. I love if I have money, I love being able to, like, go and buy some stuff for a few things. That's fine, but I'm never going over my budget. I'm never going over, like, the amount of money that I have in my account. I don't even have a credit card, so I don't trust myself with that shit. Like, if I had a credit card and some kind of deep mania, like, I think forget it. I don't think I'd be able to withstand the temptation. In a manic episode, yeah, so I haven't done that just because it freaks me out. Too easy to buy stuff. So yeah, I haven't really experienced that. Like, I know, the buying all the stuff, just going into debt. buying a bunch of stuff, buying 6 teapots, whatever it is, that bipolar people talk about that a lot. That is not something new. So I think that's interesting. The med journey is always such a huge thing. I've been on all kinds of meds for really a lot of different kinds of things. I just watched a video recently by, I think it's called Polar Warriors. He's on YouTube. I think that's right. I'll change it in the comments if I find out that's not right. But I think it's called Polar. Yeah. So I will try to figure that out. But he does talk a lot about, the different emotions. With dysphoric mania, there's a lot of irritation. There's a lot of, I end up getting really frustrated at very small things. I kind of blow them up. I get really frustrated and angry. And I think part of that is like I have been gaslit so many times that like my first expression is to just be like, what? And the fact that I always want to stress is that usually, I think it's in the 90th percentile, that the people with mental health problems are not doing the crimes. They're not doing the shoot 'em ups, whatever. They're way more likely to be abused than to be the abuser. It's so fucking important. I feel like every single time I do any kind of bipolar video, or a lot of them, I stress that. It's a big deal. So, there's that too. Oh, I feel like I've been going on forever. So there's lots of things, and I'm bipolar 1, so the things are much more intense from what I can gather when I see people talk about bipolar 2. Both, all of it can be very triggering. And you have to be careful with that. That can be really hard to get through and to understand. I know that I've been taken advantage of because I was bipolar. I know I've been swindled out of money because I am bipolar. I trust too many people. I'm not good at reading when I'm being manipulated. And that's hard because if you're not aware of it, you just kind of like go along with it. You don't think about it because you're like, these people aren't evil. Instead of like where most people are like, everyone is evil, I'm like, oh, like, let's give them a chance. A lot of times that's not great. So make sure, and I've had so much problems with this. Make sure the people around you, the people you're dating, the people you're fucking, make sure that it's not like you have to tell them right off the gate or anything, but just make sure that they know as things go on, if things go on. It's not always the case. But if you see a person and you're seeing them for a longer amount of time, to just kind of, I'm honestly super honest. I will probably tell people, because I dive in really hard. I get really intense with my relationships. And, I'll start diving in and I'll say, like, pretty soon I'll be like, I'm bipolar. And it's a big deal. It's a big part of my life. It's a big part of my struggle. And so, like, they'll be like, you can see the, like, I just wanted to be a normal, like, hot chick or whatever. And I'm like, well, there's so many problems with that. I'm not even going to start on that. But I just think it's so important to keep these conversations alive, to keep these things as sacred, because I feel like our community, our bipolar community, our mental health community, our mental illness community, we have to speak our truths. We have to tell and be able to witness some of the things that we experience. I have experienced visual hallucinations. I've experienced audio hallucinations. I have had psychosis. I have been carted off to a mental institution. I put myself in a mental institution one time. I've had so many suicide attempts I couldn't even tell you. So I have a lot of things happening. But I still, even though there's a lot, I still have my love of creativity, my poetry, my singing, my choreography. I still, try to get into those moods and modes to be able to do things like that. I have my cat, and she brings me so much joy and connection, even though it is hard to find people that will accept someone with severe mental illness. Just my 2 cents. It's been a challenge for me. So, I do kind of, I tell people right away. I mean, I don't know that I would tell them everything right away, but I would pretty quickly tell them, like, hey, I'm bipolar. Because I'm charismatic, when it comes to, like, I'm a writer, so I'm a very good texter. And so I think, like, they get, like, super excited and think I'm, like, they put me on a pedestal, all that crazy shit. And I'm constantly like, yeah, like, knock that pedestal down a bit. That's a lot to, like, live up to. Like, I'm barely alive, much less, like, trying to do that. But, it can be really hard. It can be hard to know how to deal with it, how to medicate. I mean, medication and bipolar, bipolar 1s, schizoaffective disorder, all of it. There's so many things that need to be taken care of and need to be in constant awareness of. And I will add to this, maybe I'll put that in another video because this is getting really long. But I just want to, if anyone watches this, I want to thank you for sticking it out with me for 17 minutes. That's a lot of rambling, I know. But I hope that helps you understand a little bit about my bipolar, where I'm coming from. I am all about, if you have questions, if you have comments, please let me know. What are your experiences? How do you experience if you have bipolar, or if you have a mental illness? Like, what are your struggles? What are the things that have helped you? What are coping mechanisms? I'm a life coach as well. I do think that even if you have a mental illness, you can actually have a healing practice. They are not at war with each other. So let's get that very straight. So I am a life coach. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear if there's a place I could help, if there's any advice, that I could give. Please just let me know what you need. I'm an empath. I'm a tarot reader. I know lots of spiritual things. I've seen some crazy things. So it won't surprise me. I would love to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching this whole video. If you got to the end, like, props for you. I know I ramble. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.